The fifth one is to consider where your colors appear in relation to each other. So the smaller the areas in your chart, on your chart, and the bigger the distance between them, the harder it is to compare them. Okay, so consider giving a small points or lines a high contrast in their hue or brightness to make them easily distinguishable. And however, big areas can handle toned down colors with little contrast, especially if there is no other background or color between the areas. So in this case, okay, the left graph is having a small area with a small contrast. Okay, small area meaning that the color is just that dot, so the area is small. Okay, and thus the contrast is hardly visible as compared to the right graph. So you cannot really see the contrast between one dot with another dot because it's using a gradient color. Okay, so the right graph here is having a bigger area, okay, with a small contrast. So this is more readable rather than this representation. Okay, next is to use intuitive colors. So when choosing a color palette, consider their meaning in the culture of your target audience. Okay, if possible, use colors that readers will associate with your data anyway. For example, for natural colors, we know that to represent a forest, okay, forest will always be green, okay, lake will always be blue. So that will help reader to associate the colors with the data straight away. Okay, and for example, a red is for attention, okay, to stop or something bad. Green is something good, that something is that can be performed, that can, I mean, it's okay. Yeah. So for male and female, okay, you can use color like probably pink and blue to represent the two genders. So we know that blue is for men and pink is for female. So if you use red here, it's not suitable because, you know, some red is something that is too warm. Okay, it's something that's relate to something that is not good. Okay, so we could switch off to this color. Male will remain blue and female could be other color than red. Okay, yellow or other color, pink and so on. So red for bad, green for good, green for forest, and blue for lake. The next one is to use light colors for low values and dark colors for high values. So when using color gradients, for example, in this map, okay, in this choropleth map, okay, make sure that the bright colors represent low values while the dark color represent the high values. So this will be more, this will be most intuitive for most readers. Okay, so that's how we associate, okay, the color code. Okay, so dark always for high values, low always for bright always for low values. Next, do not use a gradient color palette for categories and the other way around. Okay, so it may be tempting to use shades of one hue, meaning that maybe we just want to use one blue color even for categories to make your chart look less colorful, because that is our intention, to use less color. But however, since many readers will associate dark colors with higher value or bright color with lower value, so such color palette will imply a ranking of your categories. Okay, indirectly it shows ranking. So so you might want to use different hues. Okay, for example, use green with yellow and pink, etc. for your categories in order to avoid this. Okay, to avoid readers association with lower value of bright color and higher values with a darker color. Okay, so that the graph or representation can be able to talk about the values, okay, from the color used. So reader might be quicker at finding specific categories if you make their colors stand out with a different lightness or saturation. But note that your chart should explain why these colors stand out. So if you find your chart to be too colorful, consider another type of chart for your data. Okay, it depends on the situation. Okay, probably a pie chart is not suitable. You can use bar chart, but then if it's too many bars, so you have to find other way. Okay, other kind of chart to represent the data. Maybe tree map diagram is better. Okay, so this is not ideal because okay, you just use one color, one hue color, but then you showed okay the color by its tone color, okay, by the gradient of the blue color. So it's like showing it is actually implying that Ivan has higher value, okay, and he also has lower value, okay. So which is it is better if represent okay one color to represent one person, but as we know we shall not use more than 6 colors. So in this case, okay, there are only 4 people to represent their data on. So that's okay. So you have more than 6 people, so it's not suitable to use this representation. Okay, so we know that peach color represent Ivan. Okay, the green represent Lisa. Okay, so this is suitable rather than using a color gradient from one hue to represent data by different category. The next one is to use lightness to build gradients, not just hue. So when we use gradient, we use a combination of colors. Okay, so do not place more than 2 hues with the same lightness in your gradient, but design it from a bright color, for example white to dark color, for example dark blue, in a consistent way. So your gradient should work in black and white too. So gradient with much variation in lightness, for example like rainbow scales, can confuse readers. Okay, for example this is hue based gradient, so it used from red to blue, yellow and green. Okay, so it's confusing to read this color. Okay, so instead of this you can use just one hue, but then you use black and white, okay, to blend with the blue color, okay, as the gradient. And as we know, if it's darker color, the value is higher as compared to the brighter color. So this is less confusing than this because you don't know okay how to estimate okay the data, how to read the values in this kind of representation. Number 10 is to consider using 2 hues for a gradient, okay, not just one. Okay, you could also use, okay, in the previous one we just use one hue, but then we can blend it with blue and white, okay, white and black. Okay, just go back to the previous slide. Okay, we use lightness to build gradient, not just hues. So this is understandable. Okay, the next one here, you use 2 hues for gradient, not just one. Okay, so you can make your map or chart even more decipherable, so readers will be able to distinguish the colors on the gradient better if they are encoded through lightness, okay, and 2 to 3 carefully selected hue. Okay, so lightness means we can see the gradient here from the brighter to darkest, but then we use a combination of green and blue. So it's better than this. So we use 2 colors for gradient rather than just one. The next one is to consider using diverging color gradients. Okay, so for example, if you want to emphasize how a variable diverges from a baseline, say the national average, you may want to consider using diverging palette. So it is important to use clearly distinguishable hues for both sides of the gradient. So the center color should be ideally a light gray, not white. Okay, so this is the situation here. So this is more ideal than this. Okay, so we have 2 different color palette for the gradient. Okay, and then the center color here is light gray rather than white color. And the last guideline, choosing colors. Okay, we have to consider using diverging color gradients. Okay, we should use different lightness in the gradient and color palettes because it brings big advantage to readers with a color vision deficiency, so that they will still be able to distinguish the colors. So there are many types of color blindness. So you can use online tool. For example, you can go to this link. Okay, this is hyperlink to Data Wrapper's automatic color blind check to make sure that the colorblind users can distinguish these colors on your chart. So let's say you made a selection of color, so you can check, okay, on this website, on this link, check whether it is understandable, okay, whether the blind people can read, okay, your visual and not getting confused, okay. So these are the not ideal situation. This is ideal situation, okay, for different color gradients. Okay, so as we know that avoid using red and green shades together, because even though they are both useful connotation, for example, red for bad, green for good, okay, but then try to avoid that. So it depends on the situation. Okay, you can still use them, but make sure to have some additional visual clue. For example, you do put a bold or varying brightness, or adding simple plus minus sign in front of the numbers to ensure that they stand out. Okay, instead of red and green, you could use blue for positive and orange. Okay, so sorry, this is a spelling mistake, and orange for negative. Okay, but do not use orange and red together, because orange is lighter than red and they look similar. So but then the combination of blue and orange is okay, rather than red, orange and green, because as we know, red and green, okay, so red and green is two colors for blind people, color-blinded people. Okay, so and then this is another representation, okay, of the color selection, okay, to avoid color-blind people. Okay, so this is safe color palette, okay, and this is not good for non-color-blind. This is non-color-blind safe, and this is low contrast and non-color-blind safe. So you can also go to this website, okay, to check, okay, as a guideline to check about color blindness. And another one, okay, and the last element that I put in this slide, okay, that we discuss in this slide, is about size. So size really matters, okay. The relative size denotes the relative importance. So if you are showing multiple things that are roughly equal importance, the size should be similar. But if there is one really important thing, you have to leverage the size to indicate that data. Okay, so make it big. For example, in this representation of months from January to December, okay, we have 3 line charts here. So this one is showing America performance, from probably America data. Okay, so we want to emphasize on America. Okay, we want to explain about America. So we increase the size of the line as compared to the other 2 lines. So and then you can put this. Okay, this is part of call out. Okay, so that the reader will understand, okay, this is America performance on something. Okay, so we are going to emphasize about America, and the storytelling is explaining about America performance. Okay, so basically those are the types, okay, or elements of visual design that we discuss in this slide. There are many other elements, okay, but colors is the one that we are actually focusing more, okay, in at your level, okay, and also on this part, okay, where we have discussed in detail with the examples, okay, of charts that is good and not good, okay, type of representation. Okay, so we have discussed more about color and also size, okay, size or area, okay, even the shape and position. So these are, and distance, okay, so the thickness of the line, okay. So these are all the elements of visual design that you can play with, okay, when you design your chart or graph representation. Of course, you can find more resources from the internet regarding those that we haven't discussed in detail.